President Trump announced today the federal government is taking over operational control of the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department and deploying 800 National Guard troops to the city streets.
My father always used to tell me, I had a wonderful father, very smart, and he used to say, son, when you walk into a restaurant and you see a dirty front door, don't go in, because if the front door is dirty, the kitchen's dirty also. Same thing with the Capitol. If our capital's dirty, our whole country is dirty.
Trump is adamant that crime is on the rise in the nation's capital, so this federal takeover is absolutely necessary. According to D.C. Metro Police statistics, though, crime is actually down in every category when you compare 2024 and 2025. The D.C. mayor says crime is actually at a 30-year low. Now, despite those numbers, today, Trump signed an executive order declaring a crime emergency in the District of Columbia, and he signed a separate memo that mobilizes the D.C. National Guard. So the question is, can Trump do this? The short answer is yes, and I'm going to explain why D.C. is different in a second. But you may also be wondering, can Trump do this in your city? Well, here's what he said about that.
I mean, we're just going to see what happens with it all. We're going to have a tremendous success in what we're doing. Other cities are hopefully watching this. They're all watching, just like everyone's watching here. They're all watching, and maybe they'll clean up. But then I'm going to look at New York in a little while. Let's do this. Let's do this together. Let's see. It's going to go pretty quickly. And if we need to, we're going to do the same thing in Chicago, which is a disaster.
Okay, back to D.C. Let's talk about Trump's takeover of the D.C. Metro Police. You need to first understand that Washington, D.C. is not a state. It's unique. The way the district is governed is very different than a state government, and the control the Constitution gives those states over all the functions of that state, including the function of law enforcement. On top of that, there is a law on the books that actually gives the President of the United States the specific ability to seize control of Washington, D.C.'s police. It's called the Home Rule Act of 1973. That law does several things related to the federal government and its jurisdiction over the nation's capital. But because of the executive order Trump signed today declaring the crime emergency, he is invoking Section 740 of the Home Rule Act. That section says the president can take emergency control of the D.C. police, but only if he has determined that special conditions of an emergency nature exist. And this federal control cannot exceed 30 days unless the House and the Senate pass a law extending that control. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser says she's not surprised Trump is taking this extraordinary step.
We are American citizens. Our families go to war. We pay taxes and we uphold the responsibilities of citizenship. And while this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, I can't say that given some of the rhetoric of the past that we're totally surprised. I believe that the president's view of D.C. is shaped by his COVID-era experience during his first term.
So how will the Metro Police in D.C. operate differently under federal control versus how they've been operating under the control of the district? Well, Trump addressed that today and raised a few eyebrows.
You tell them, you spit and we hit, and they can hit real hard. Police are standing, and they're told, don't do anything under any search, so and you can see they want to get at it. And they're standing there, and people are spitting in their face, and they're not allowed to do anything. But now they are allowed to do whatever the hell they want.
As for the National Guard, Trump says he's already mobilized 800 Guard troops to the district and says more are on standby along with the U.S. military. Again, because D.C. is not a state, they have no control over the deployment of the D.C. National Guard. But the president absolutely does.
At your direction this morning, we've mobilized the D.C. National Guard. It'll be operationalized by the Secretary of the Army, Dan Driscoll, through the D.C. Guard. You will see them flowing into the streets of Washington in the coming week. At your direction as well, sir, there are other units we are prepared to bring in.
Two things come up here. First, we already saw Trump do this. He declared an emergency and deployed thousands of National Guard troops and a few hundred Marines to California a few months ago after massive protests broke out over his ICE raids and immigration enforcement efforts. Trump did that against the wishes of the state's governor. Governor Newsom sued, saying Trump overstepped his authority. Newsom said there was no emergency and the state did not want those guard troops on the streets of LA. Coincidentally, that case is actually being heard in federal court today. The other thing this new D.C. Guard mobilization brings up is Trump's lack of response in Washington, D.C. during the events of January 6, 2021. At that time, Trump said repeatedly that it was Speaker Nancy Pelosi who had to request the National Guard to assist with the riot that was happening at the Capitol, suggesting that his hands were tied in that moment. Now, compare that to today. No local lawmaker, including the mayor of D.C., have asked for the National Guard to be deployed because of this so-called crime emergency. But despite that, Trump says he absolutely has the power to deploy the National Guard all on his own.